Okay, welcome everybody to Cambridge University Jain Society's event where we are going to hear from Wenda, who is the founder of Hugletts Wood Farm Animal Sanctuary. She founded it in 1995 as a sanctuary for cows and their friends. The sanctuary offers a home for life to farm animals and birds rescued from the slaughterhouse or those who are physically or mentally handicapped. Wenda and her partner Matthew, they believe in walking the talk, and to that end live what they call a gentle life, taking only what they need to live and serving the animals in their care, using solar and wind power, recycling grey water, and being as harmless as possible. They are both strict vegans and environmentally aware. Wenda, ever since she was a child, has traveled to India to do seva, which is like charity or service, at panjrapoles and gaushallas, or wherever else she is required to help take care of animals. She works with Indian cow protectors to save cows from butchers and traffickers. From 2005 to 2010, Wenda has been busy helping the widows of farmers to create their own self-sufficiency. Wenda is an activist, she's a speaker, she's a writer, and a caregiver. She does whatever is necessary to plant seeds in the mind of others so they may discover the benefits of harmlessness. For Jains, she kind of embodies all like the principles that Jains believe in, including ahimsa. And so we're really excited to hear her stories and how she lives her life. So yeah, I'd like to warmly welcome Wenda. And yeah, please, she'll be speaking for an hour or 45 minutes to an hour, and then we'll have time for questions and answers. So please use the chat function to put in any questions to ask Wenda. Welcome.
Thank you all for coming this afternoon. I hope it'll be interesting for you. It's kept me interested for about 26 years now, so fingers crossed. I wanted to introduce the sanctuary to you in a way that is not too boring, not too mundane. And I think if we just cover the truthfulness of how the sanctuary started and our philosophy, I think it'll give you some idea of what we're doing here. We started the sanctuary 1995. It was after a long time protesting against live exports at Shoreham. In fact, I must have lived on the street for almost 5 months, day and night, as we tried to stop the lorries full of calves and sheep on their way to Europe. It was after 5 months that I suddenly thought maybe that was the time to fulfill my childhood dream of having a place where parents weren't separated from their young, where old could die in peace instead of a slaughterhouse. And to that end, I rented my first piece of land. This was before I knew Matthew. And the first 11 cows came and some sheep came. And then I found we'd outgrown the land that I'd rented. During that time, I met Matthew, who is now my lifetime partner. And we moved on to a larger piece of land and we took more animals, not to pile them up and make use of the land too quickly, but it just so happened that at that time, nobody was giving sanctuary to cows. They were just too big, too bulky, too expensive, and they lived a long time, and they still live a long time. But it was a gentle growth. Over about 2.5 years, we ended up on quite a substantial sized piece of land. We had by that time 19 cows, probably 15 sheep, 2 pigs, and many birds. What made us take the next step was that one night, somebody from a mental institute, which was a mile or so away from the sanctuary, had broken out and slashed the neck of one of the cows. She was very badly injured. She was in calf at the time. She had come to us in calf, and the veterinarian said that he didn't think she'd make it. But with a lot of work and a lot of hope and a lot of belief, she pulled through. She lived 19 years in her body. She saw her calf grow up. And that was followed by another 2 attacks on 2 other cows, 1 bull and 1 young cow. We decided, or rather I decided, that we couldn't say that we were protecting cows if we weren't with them and they were left open to attack. So I took the massive decision to sell the house, give up all my creature comforts and Matthew's as well, and to look for somewhere that we could buy where we could live 24/7 with all the animals that we were amassing. In 1998, we managed to come here to Hugletts Wood Farm, where we've been ever since. It was a superb opportunity for us to put into action everything that we believed in. Both of us came from very strange backgrounds. Matthew grew up in Africa. I spent a lot of time in North Africa. And because of that, I think we both realized that we really were more in tune with nature than we were with society and with people. So we came here, we moved all the animals as gently as possible, and in 1998 we started Hugletts Wood Farm, which was just simply a carry-on from the other 3 places that we'd been. We really wanted to start a cow sanctuary, a specific cow sanctuary, because for many years I'd been doing seva at gaushallas in India and also at panjrapoles. So I had a good idea of what was necessary to provide lifelong care for cows. And unfortunately in the West, they really are not respected in the way that I had grown up to see them respected. We started putting together a cow protection project, which meant that we were going to cover every part of the cow's life from birth through to the time they leave their bodies. It was going to be a structured seva in that when the time came for them to leave their bodies, we were not going to call the vet and say to the vet, come and kill them. What we wanted to do was allow them, as with all the other animals, to actually leave their bodies when the time was right. And that would be through careful pain relief, through offering the opportunity of departing slowly, but with round-the-clock care. And we put that into effect as soon as we moved here. What we also wanted to do was provide somewhere for any animal, cows in particular, to come and find sanctuary. They didn't have to do anything peculiar. They didn't have to do anything special. They didn't have to prove their worth, because our philosophy is everyone has the right to life. So when we came here, we started to talk to people, get their ideas on how we should do this, mostly people from India who were already involved in cow protection. We then went on to create a philosophy which we live by now, which I will cover in a little while, in that to provide sanctuary for cows, it was not necessary to harm the wildlife that were existing here. We had to create something that was equally beneficial to both, so the rescued animals would not cause any problems with those animals who were living free and wild. And likewise, the wild animals would carry on their lives uninterrupted. It took us about 3 years the fact that we wanted to run without recourse to fossil fuels. We looked at renewable energies. We looked at wind power. We looked at solar power. And slowly over the years, we've implemented both. We recycle grey water. We tend to use very beautiful Swedish composting toilets. So we have some creature comforts, but they are the kind of toilets that will break down compost, which can be used on flower beds, things like that. We didn't want to be using too much water. So we started to recycle grey water. In fact, any water that we used was recycled. We used that to pour onto vegetables that we were growing. We used it to put onto flower beds, and we used it for washing external things, obviously not our own washing or clothes washing, but things like washing down cars or whatever. And it seemed within a year maybe 18 months, that we were making good headway into living, excuse me, as we thought we really ought to. We came across many obstacles, as with anything good. My Guru Maharaj always tells me if something is good, it's not going to be easy. So we overcame a number of obstacles, including the local farming community who thought we were complete lunatics for living as we did, for not wanting to kill magnificent bullocks that were maybe 2 meters tall and weighed 2,000 kilos. To us, they were a thing of beauty. They had a right to life, to fulfilled life, so that they were able to continue until they were not able to physically continue anymore. The same with the sheep. The farmers thought we were completely crazed in the fact that we could raise lambs that were almost half dead into magnificent, fully grown ewes and rams, and not want to do any more to them than see them graze. Slowly, we were able to talk to the people, and I think being peaceful and not aggressive helped us an awful lot. And that when they came to look at the animals and to ask us questions, we weren't hostile. They were quite shocked by the fact we were not aggressive with them. It was a very, very hard thing for us to do, but we knew that to be successful and to survive here in what is, in all intents and purposes, a farming environment, that we would have to adopt that attitude. It sort of led us on to adopting more of a Jain life, and in that we were trying to hold on to the principles of ahimsa, which most of us know is not just not harming. It's keeping a peaceful thought, wishing no ill, living gently, being humble, and without even realizing these Royal Jain principles, we were just following our path in doing what came easy to us. Meanwhile, we were still considering the implementation of the cow project, the cow protection project. We wanted to create somewhere where, when an animal came to us, in particular a cow, that they were able to find peace in their own way, not in a structured way, rather that we worked around the animals who were coming to us, allowing them to settle at their own pace, working to facilitate their choice of friends so that they could remain with friends all their lives. And we managed to do that. We were also working towards self-sufficiency in that we were not a party to mass-grown vegetables and plants. We wanted to grow what we needed to keep life very, very simple. And the animals sort of structured the way that we lived at that time. Nothing has changed. We still live our lives around the animals. We still manage to live a very, very simple life. But things have expanded. Whereas we had 20, 30 animals in those days, we're now offering sanctuary to 350 very, very different personalities. All of them requires care, love, understanding. They all require freedom. And in a society like we have in the West, where everything has to be captive, we can't allow cows to wander down the lane or pop into somebody else's field. It's just not permitted by law. And we wanted to make sure that the cows were not imprisoned, for want of a better word. We wanted to give them as much freedom and space as possible. But we had to also take into account that some of them, as in human society, would not tolerate each other. They would fight, they would be a bully, they would be quite aggressive in some cases. So we thought that if we allowed the cows, in fact all the animals, to choose their company, that would be the kindest thing for them to do. So these days, and probably for the last 20 years, when anybody comes, we allow them a period of time to adjust. They need time to heal also. mentally heal, physically heal in many cases. When they're settled, they have by that time met just about everybody who exists. These days, we can project which herd they will feel most comfortable in. We're running 3 herds of cows at the moment because we like to feel that nobody is stressed, nobody is in a situation that they're uncomfortable with. And research has shown that animals, especially cows, are happy in numbers up to about 30. They're able to recognize faces under 30. They're able to make friends in groups. They can have extended friendships. So we've tended to go along with that, and the only exception has been when we have handicapped animals come to us. We tend to treat each of those two as individuals. We assess, although we're not veterinarians, we assess their handicap. We know now, with the 26 years experience that we've had, what challenges they're going to face. Going into a herd, whether they can go into a herd, whether they can be in a small group with a few friends. But in all cases, they have company because cows are herd animals. It's a little easier with sheep. They tend to do well in small numbers. So if we have a handicapped sheep come to us, or if one is handicapped during the time it's with us, then we can adjust their little friendship pod and let them continue living that way. We have always strived to make sure that whatever animal is here, all their needs are met. With handicapped, if I go back to handicapped animals again now, dependent on their handicap, whether they're blind, whether they are missing a limb, whether they have a mental handicap, where they've been so cruelly treated or abused, or whether they've themselves witnessed something that has traumatized them, we are able to work with them, overcome their handicap, be it physical or mental, and encourage them and facilitate a much happier way of life for them. We tend to come to this from a spiritual aspect. To us, as I said before, all life is precious, all life is important. To us, all life is equal, which caused one young Jain man I met about, I think it was 15 or 16 years ago, having spoken to me at a show and listened to our philosophy, how we approach running the sanctuary, how we offer care to the animals. It's not just animals, it's wildlife, it's nature, it's the land, it's the atmosphere, the trees, the forests that we have. He stood and he said, "Do you know you're more Jain than I am?" And I said, "Well, I know about Jainism from my work in India, but I never considered that we were doing anything Jain. To us, as I said before, it comes so naturally that we honor all life, that we live simply, that we tend to go about our work, and we have to work. We have to dig into the land, to make fresh grass for the cows, to keep it strong, to keep it vibrant and vital. We have to consider everything that we do so that we are doing as little harm as possible. It's like the way that we keep the animals. It just has to be very, very simple and very, very gentle. Everything that we have to do with them, we have to look at. We have to find the most kind way of even a vet treating them. So with this philosophy, we tended to look at all aspects of life here. It caused us some problems when it came to the fact that we believe that euthanasia is not ahimsa. The taking of life, whether it's a mercy killing or otherwise, is hinsa. It is not kind. It is not our right to take life. It is not what is expected. So many people I know, as we found at the time we made this decision, when a very old cow with She had liver cancer. She was given medication to keep her comfortable. We explained to the vet we did not want to kill her. And to us, euthanasia, albeit nicer, I suppose, for the human being who's caring for an animal, and the human being will not have time to sit 24/7 and nurse and care and do whatever is necessary to keep said animal comfortable. They will throw their hands in the air and they will say, this isn't right in today's society. If something is terminally ill, the kindest thing to do is kill it. And this, in short, is what our vet said to us the first time we came up against this. And we had to plead with him that we could demonstrate that we could keep this cow pain-free with his help, with the help of pain relief, with medication, with liver medicine. And she finally left us at 3 o'clock one morning. And I had taken the precaution of calling him at 1 o'clock because we knew she was close to leaving, because it was the very first time we wanted him to see how we were handling it, so that if anything happened in future, he would give us his support. Wasn't easy, certainly wasn't easy, but he came, he sat in the barn with us, he saw us caring for her. I am a Krishna devotee, so I was chanting for her. Matthew had her head across his knee, and her son, who was about a year old by that time, was cuddled up at the side of her. And she went through all the throes of leaving her body, which I won't take time to describe. It's personal to each being who goes through that transition. But it was very gentle and very beautiful. And as she left her body, she lifted her head gently and she mooed. And that moo went from the barn that she was living in, through all the cows that were with her in that barn, to the middle barn that we have in the yard, to the top barn. It was like a huge circle of goodbye. It was the most beautiful thing ever. And so much so that when the vet got back to the surgery, or went into the surgery, because I think he had 2 hours sleep or 3 hours sleep, he was telling everybody that it was the most remarkable thing he had ever seen. So from that day on, we had the support of our veterinary practice, so that we could, providing we put in the work and providing we cared and kept everybody pain-free and everybody comfortable who was about to leave their body, that they would give us their backing. So as strange as it is to some people, we're now able to make sure that whoever is here is able to choose the right time for them to leave their body. To us, it is the most natural thing in the world, because we believe whatever body we're in, we have to fulfill the time for that incarnation. And it very rarely happens that humans are cut short. But it's very, very common that if someone is in the form of an animal, is incarnated in the body of an animal or a bird or anything that's not human, they don't get that same consideration. As I said before, the most important thing is that we see everything as equal. I am equal to a flea or a mouse. We're all equal to whatever body someone is in. And our thinking is that we need to offer the care, offer them the opportunity of fulfilling their life in that body so they can move on and take form in another body until their lives are fulfilled and everything is complete. So we have probably over the years seen 30 or 40, I would think, cows and sheep and pigs leave their bodies. Not one of them has been painful. Not one of them has been fearful or stressful. Afterwards, when they've left us, Matthew and I cry like children. And it's an indescribable feeling that we know everything's okay because they've fulfilled that incarnation, but it's our sense of loss. So we're very human, we're very attached. We haven't got to the point where we can be detached. I don't think in this incarnation it will happen, because we love and we care, and there is no difference to who we love or who we care. Um, it's just that we serve them, we honor them, and when they leave their bodies, we make sure that the people these days who have to come and collect their bodies treat them with respect. So we send them off from here, bathed in Ganga Jal. They have a tilak on their heads. The cows will have tulsi mala. We put tulsi leaves in their mouths and we cover them with harinam chadar. And then we hand them over to the people who will cremate them. And it's the hardest thing to let them go to somebody who doesn't understand respect of an animal. They're very good people, they do a job, but they're not us. But we've learned over the years that the animals give their own send off. They will actually run alongside the truck that carries the body. They will follow the driveway, they will follow the bend in the drive, they will go right the way down in a group running at the side of the truck to the hedge where the gate is. And then they'll all stand in a group and lift their heads and give a gigantic bellow, which I suppose is their way of honoring whoever is leaving us. It's the most beautiful but most moving thing to see. It does trouble the men who come and collect the bodies, because if somebody leaves their body in summer, then they have to drive the truck into the field and pick up the body. And the cows are so organized now, depending which herd they're in, that they will escort the truck down to the body of whoever has left, and they will stand at the side of the ramp where the body is pulled up. And the little ones, normally the younger ones, will actually lick the body as it goes up. And when the flap shuts, then they will form a line again, a guard, and they will take the truck at probably 2 or 3 miles an hour, speed-wise, to the side of the field where they can exit. And then they'll wait and do as described before, run down to the gate and see them off. We tend to live very much with the rescued animals here. We're their family, they're our family. I think the idea that we are above or any different to any other life form is quite ridiculous. We've seen so many times that if we go to them and they're in need, they will circle us. They will also protect us by circling us if we're threatened in any way, like a very big storm that we had probably 20 years ago. And while we were busy running out all night to check they were okay, because we couldn't bring them in because the barns were flooded because the weather was so incredibly awful, that they would gather round us and form a barrier against the wind. It was an incredible thing to see and to witness. I guess because we live so closely to the animals, we live a very simple life. We do believe, which I'm told is another Jain principle, that we should live very, very simply. We shouldn't take more than we need, and we don't. To us, that is greed. Nobody needs any more than it takes for them to live. That's with regard to food, with regard to items we have, with regard to things in the home. You can see behind me, everything is very, very simple and very wooden. and we're happy doing this. We both came from backgrounds where the families were quite well off, well, very well off. We both lived rich lives, materialistically rich lives, but we've never been as happy as we are now. It's taught us so much that we need so little to be content. We don't need large houses. We don't need electricity. We don't need lots of utensils in the kitchen. So we live with wind power and solar power, as I said. We have grey water recycling. We do everything simply. We're just about to put in a green roof on one of the buildings that's being built. which will provide environment for butterflies and bees, whatever needs the different atmosphere for them. The plants that we'll plant up there will be bee friendly, which will nurture them and give them somewhere else that they can live. We tend not to, after 26 years, notice, well, actually, it's 24 years living like this. We tend not to notice how humbly we live. To us, it isn't anything difficult to achieve. It's just living gently, and we really do believe it's very, very important to live this way. We consider whatever buildings we put up, we try to minimize the effect that it has on the environment, and especially for creatures that are living in the ground or by the hedges or wherever the building is going to go. We don't like the thought of upsetting anyone or taking away their home or taking away their habitat. It's very important that the wildlife who were here, the invertebrates who've only got a short time in this world, have a good quality of life. So with the invertebrates, with the new green roof and all the other things that we've done here, we've ensured as far as we can that they're going to live undisturbed for whatever time they have here. With the wildlife, we don't trouble them. We tend not to encroach on their habitat. We do all we can to improve it, so that if there's a loss of tree one year, then Matthew will go and he'll plant others. It's a long time for them to grow, but it means there won't be a time when the birds won't have trees to sit in. We have the most amazing number of what do you call them, birds here. We have crows, we have red kites, we have all the garden birds that we're told aren't around anymore, whose numbers are failing. We have owls, we have 5 types of owls. And for many, many years, there was a golden eagle who lived in our woodland. And we lived in terror of the gamekeeper who's in the village noticing it and quietly killing it, because unfortunately he has no respect for life. But the golden eagle survived many, many years. It's only about a year and a half ago that he left us. I don't know if he left his body or he flew off to find a mate. But he honored us with his association for a long, long time. We try our hardest to encourage people to look at the life we lead. To us, there's no point in living this life if we aren't sharing it with people. But that said, we tend to limit the number of people who come to visit the animals simply because of the environmental damage they do when they visit. We have 4 open days a year. We have in the region of 200 to 300 people each day. It's very easy to tell when they've all left, that even with the best intention in the world, they have completely decimated certain parts of the sanctuary. Not so that they're irreparable, but so that the animals, the wild animals, tend to move away temporarily. So when people say, why don't we have more open days, or why don't we have open access to visitors, we explain to them that everything we do here is for the benefit of the rescued residents and also the wildlife and the visiting wildlife like deer, foxes, badgers. We need to make sure that they come first, that they have a place of safety. And to that end, we will always work to that. There will never be a time when people can drop into here, because we're here for the animals, not as a visitor attraction. So we don't fall out with people, but we find it very difficult to explain to them that this is our philosophy. We are doing this for the benefit of the animals, not for ourselves and humankind. Eventually, it will benefit us, but at the moment, it has to be completely for the animals and the birds and the wildlife and the environment and the land and whatever else is in nature that we need to protect. We we tend to focus down on producing everything ourselves so that we're self-sufficient. We, to that end, we grow things in a polytunnel. We grow our own vegetables. We're very strange in that although we'll eat vegetables, and they too are a life form, that when we've taken the fruit, we leave the plants to die down. And when people visit and they see a number of dead and dying vegetable plants, they always think we're short of time and we haven't pulled them out. And I try very hard to explain to them that although we've taken the fruits of the vegetable plant, that has to be allowed to die down naturally. That to us means that we're not pulling it out of the ground. We're not taking a lot of invertebrates with us. We're not damaging beetles and bugs and spiders and everything else that would happen if we pull the plant from the ground. We like nature to follow its course. And to that end, we don't mind living with dead and dying things. It's the same with stinging nettles. From spring onwards, we have a lot of stinging nettles around in groups, not so that it looks ugly, but the thing is the cabbage white butterfly depends on nettles. A number of other invertebrates depend on nettles. They depend on what one would call weeds. Fortunately, we don't tend to have an awful lot of weeds here, but we can't just pull them out. We can't kill them. We can't take away the means of invertebrates, butterflies, moths, and everything else having food and having a place to be. So we tend not to be very, very popular on open days, the first few open days, when children are backing into bunches of stinging nettles. It's just the way we are. We're trying to straddle two lives here. One that is so fundamentally important, and that is to give sanctuary to those who are desperately in need, those who have been abused, those who've been within an inch of their lives being taken, those who've been born deformed, those who are mentally challenged. They have to be our priority. But also, in order to run, although we fund here, probably now it's not as much as it used to be. I would think it's probably about 70% of the running costs of this place. Matthew and I fund ourselves out of work. Matthew is a traditional woodsman. He uses fallen trees to make products. He will care for the trees. He'll allow regeneration, natural regeneration, rather than cutting down and replanting. And I, in turn, will grow vegetables. I make things. We have a number of supporters who will help. It's hard going, but we do it because we believe that nobody should fund our lifestyle. That to prove somewhere is working and to prove that this is a good way of life, we should be able to fund it. Nowadays, we gladly accept people's donations and funding because, as many of you might know, last week we took 22 cows from Ireland. They were all due to be slaughtered, some in calf mothers, some little calves who had been orphans, some calves who had been taken from their mothers, some cows who were old and having served all their lives, giving milk, having their calves taken, were due to be slaughtered. Nobody would take them. They just didn't have a story. And unfortunately, these days, a story saves lives. Our philosophy, as I mentioned before, is everyone has the right to life. And it was a massive, massive challenge to us because we're not like the big sanctuaries. We're not made for visiting. We're not made for people coming to see the cows and things every day. It happened. It worked. People were so kind and they supported what we wanted to do, what we had to do, because it had been brought to our attention. And I can imagine lots of you are thinking, well, why take 22 cows from Ireland when there are thousands of cows going to the slaughterhouse every day here in England? We didn't hear about those cows going to the slaughterhouse in England, but we heard about the cows needing to be saved in Ireland. So we couldn't turn away. we had to find a way of helping them. And it was a big, big challenge, but we did it. There's no ego involved in this, but it just goes to show that when there's something to be done, it can be done, it can be realized, it can be successful. And I think the most important thing is that we just look at getting it done, not patting ourselves on the back, not asking for an abundance of money to make it possible, but just saying, we need this much, we've got this much, can anybody help? Will you donate to save a life? And making the people feel special for doing that. And it really is so important that when one tries to involve other people in a project or in a situation where something has to be done in the minimal amount of time, that I do apologize for the banging, the cats are going haywire, that it's successful and that people feel that they have actually done something. Because there are so many people in cities who want to do something, who can't do something because their lifestyle says they don't have the time, they can't accommodate a calf or an elderly cow in their drawing room. But by doing this, they actually achieved something. We have, as I said before, a number of handicapped animals here. They're delightful. They're very, very special. They tend to need a lot of support when they come, and invariably we've had to do battle with the authorities to allow them to come here. We have the most amazing bullock called Archie No-Tail. He came blind in one eye, deaf. He had a fused pelvis, and he ran sideways. And the authorities, when we found out about him, said he had to be slaughtered, that he would have no quality of life, that he would never be able to go out to grass, and that he would never fit into a herd. So with the help of a wonderful veterinarian, we managed to talk them into allowing him to come to us. There were lots of conditions, like if he couldn't walk into the trailer for transportation, they would kill him on the spot or send him straight off to slaughter. With a little bit of thought, we got him home. He stood in the corner of his barn for probably a week or two. And then I spoke to the farm where he came from, and they said that they used to beat him with a stick when they wanted to go into the barn because he always came up to them and they wanted him out of the way. And we had a lot of treatment for him, mental treatment, physical treatment, all sorts of alternative treatments. And within a year, he managed to come out of his corner more often than he was in it. By year 2, he was watching his barn mates go out to graze, and he would wander to the gate, not wanting to go in and not wanting to follow them, but he would watch them over the gate. And about 3 or 4 months after that, he started to moo. It took him a long time of making lots of very strange noises, but finally he did it. And he mooed all day and all night until he went hoarse. And we had a few days peace and quiet, and then he mooed normally like the others. Within a few months, he wanted to go out into the field. He was nudging the gate and showing us what he wanted. And he ran in sideways, because he could only run sideways with his fused hips, and he joined his family. And since then, I think it must be about 8 years, he's gone out in spring with his family and he's come in with them in autumn. To us, it's just facilitating, making it possible for him to have the time and the comfort and the confidence to follow what his body will let him do. And sometimes with other cows, things aren't quite perfect, but they live the quality of life that their bodies allow them to, which to our way of thinking is, it's his lesson, it's his karma, that he has been born in that body, he has lessons, and therefore he requires our support to learn that lesson. And he, like everybody else, will leave his body at the allotted time, not when we find it comfortable or we can fit it in to kill him, or that he is at a stage of his life where things are more difficult, because we'll be with him 24 hours a day and we'll nurse him like we always do. If he needs pain relief or treatment, he'll get it. We see so many different things here. We accept with an open heart that sometimes animals or birds come here just so they can leave their body in what the people who bring them to us say is a feeling of love. Everybody has the right to comfort when they're preparing to leave their body. And it's no different for the cows or the sheep or the pigs or the birds or the cats or the dog here. And to that end, we make sure that little creatures like a calf called Dickie Hornbeam, who came to us many years ago with calcified lungs because he'd been left out in the rain to die because they couldn't sell him at market and they didn't want to shoot him. He came late one night because he'd been found unable to breathe, and they'd called the vet, and the vet had said, he's not going to live. So they asked permission to remove him and bring him here. And my job then was to be with him until he left his body. And the next morning, he was still alive. And I opened my eyes to see him looking down at me with the brightest, most lively eyes I'd seen in a long time. We called our vet, and she came and treated him and said, enjoy every minute with him that you can, because the prognosis isn't good. He won't be able to take deep breaths. He won't be able to run. He won't be able to do many things, but he might survive. And so he did for 10 years. And his life in springtime at turnout was a little bit tricky because he couldn't catch his breath when he ran to into the field. We call it honoring Bhumi, because the cows run out and they put their faces down on the ground and they roll their cheeks as if they're greeting something they love or someone they love. But he would manage a little run. He left us one very, very bad winter when the medication that we were giving him no longer worked. And he was very, very peaceful, very, very peaceful. Couldn't get his breath. We had anti-inflammatories for him. He was comfortable, and probably, I think it was about 2 o'clock in the morning now, he looked round at me and I moved to hold him, and he just left. And it was heartbreaking. But life goes on. It's not our control. It's not anything that we can put right. We have to serve. We we need to welcome everybody with open arms and to allow them to go with love. And I think in a way that's what we do best here. We facilitate a life, as long as their life is, a kind, gentle life. And we will always do this. We tend to believe in giving back some of the good. And for that reason, I'm blessed that I can, other than this year, I've been denied this year. I've always gone to India since my father introduced India to me as a child. It was my wonderful place. It was the place where, as a vegetarian child in those days, not so much now, I could eat whatever was given to me. It was always vegetarian. And it's my home. It's my spiritual home. I think, like so many Westerners say, mostly hippies, it's the place. And it is. It's a very, very real country. I always leave hating it because it's so cruel. And the minute I'm in the aircraft, I want to go back. And I greet it every time as if I'm greeting my mother. It is the most amazing place. And I've been blessed in that over the years, I've been able to work with various gaushallas and serving and doing things that the local people don't really want to do, like sitting with the cows who are preparing to leave their bodies. That's second nature to me. just caring for them and giving them water and massaging them and turning them and chanting for them. To me, it is the most beautiful seva in the world. I tend to do whatever I can to make India realize that things are changing so much and not for the better without trying to interfere too much. And to that end, I work with a lot of NGOs with my mouth firmly closed, because I think the last thing that Bharat needs is for Westerners, especially Britishers, to come and preach. We have no right. So I get up to all sorts of mischief in India, in that I go with NGOs to stop the cows being taken by the butchers. My job, because I don't believe too much in violence, is to climb into the back of the trucks with a very strange knife and cut down the cows that have been held up by their throats with ropes, while the people are stopping the lorry, the trailer, whatever. Of course, cows are well hidden now under big sacks of whatever. Many are dead by the time we reach them. But those who are still in their bodies, we cut down. Once the truck is stopped, we pull off, or the truck is driven to a gaushala or panjrapole, and we care for them then. My job is caregiving, cutting down and caregiving, and I am so happy to do that. There's an element of risk. I know last year, the year before, I found myself in Pakistan, because from the border we had not stopped, and the drivers were driving very, very fast over the borders. And I was in the back of the lorry with a very sweet man who didn't speak a word of English. And he didn't even speak Hindi, so I couldn't understand what he was saying. But it's something I feel I have to do. I used to, in my youth, go into leather factories and slaughterhouses. And I seemed to have a certain resistance when I was very young. Well, not very young, but maybe in my 20s and 30s. I can't do it now. It's the most awful, awful thing to see that can't be stopped. We used to lead the cows out, and now it's getting harder. There seems to be an element of violence in anything to do with cow protection or people who don't want to protect cows. But it earned me the nickname of the mother of cows in India. I don't know if I deserve that name. I don't know if it's a nice name or not. I know in England it's not. But I then also incorporated helping widows to pull their lives together after the farmers had committed suicide by being sold up the Swanee by the government and big industry. And so I would teach them how to grow vegetables and how to look after their cows. Obviously, being vegan, I would choose not to take dairy products. But it's fine being idealistic in a situation where somebody is desperate, and the decision is, do they stay in the countryside, in the villages, or do they go into the cities and prostitute themselves? And in my book, I think allowing them to look after a cow and maintaining all the progeny of that cow is far better than allowing them to do that to themselves. We tend not to allow people to use the sanctuary for different things. We're very, very particular in what we will let the cows and the animals be involved in. In 2018, a Russian film director, the first vegan apparently in Russia, came to us and asked, well, his PA came to us and asked if they could come and film the cows. And we asked what for, and they said it's a film called Gunda. Now, Gunda is about a pig and her piglets. No humans involved. It's black and white. It's the most magnificent, awe-inspiring film I've ever seen. They spent 5 days here filming the cows doing everything with not a human in sight. And it launched in Berlin on the 1st of March. It has won prizes from all the film festivals. It looks as if it's in line for a submission for an Oscar. And it is testimony to this man's brilliance, that he could actually create a film that's 90 minutes long, that is just about animals. No talking, no music, nothing. It's just animals. So we gave back a little bit, permitting them to come here and film the animals in their beauty, in their surroundings, for people all over the world to watch if they're inclined, and to learn, and to maybe see animals differently to the way they do now. So that is how we function. I've spoken for almost 1 hour. Just telling you, no notes, just telling you about this beautiful, wonderful place that we have been blessed to work on, to create, to facilitate for animals long after we're not here anymore. That is our hope. And we are just incredibly grateful for it. We want to share that gratitude, which is why occasionally I agree to talk like this. I just am speechless when I think about it, which sounds very profound and very silly, but it's a magnificent place that has been created by the animals, by nature, by gentleness, by us keeping away and not interfering, and just allowing life to go on around us very gently. Thank you.
Sorry. Thank you so much, Wenda. That was so moving, really touching, and we could really tell that you were speaking from your heart. And yeah, just incredibly moving and so amazing to hear about just a completely different life that you live, at least for us, growing up in cities. So yeah, just thank you from the bottom of our hearts. We have a few questions coming in, so I will ask them and hopefully you can answer them as best you can. Do you ever have to say no in accepting animals? Like if you've been asked, like, do you have like a capacity to how many animals you can look after?
we have a capacity, obviously. This will sound very profound, and I do apologize for it, but I trust, call it what you will. I always know that if anyone needs to come to us, is meant to come to us, that there will be a way that they come, that either one of the old animals will have left their body and leave us space to take another one, or that something will happen and we can just take them. In 26 years, we've never, well, yes, we have said no to a person who told us we had to have the pet pig that she'd raised because it was attacking her husband. And I felt no qualms about saying, I'm sorry, but we're not here to take pet pigs gone rogue. And advised her to contemplate speaking to an animal behaviorist, because what had happened was she had raised a male pig in her home with a daughter, so they're two females, and the husband was getting in the way of the pig looking after his two females. But she didn't want to go down that path. He wasn't worthwhile enough. And I said to her, I'm very sorry, but we won't do this. And I put the phone down actually to screams of, you have to, you must, you have to. And that was it.
Great, thank you. Who else do you have helping you on the farm, like apart from your partner?
It's our life's labor. It's, even though we're getting older now, we've done this for 26 years. We were young when we started. It's something that we do because it's our life's labor. It's our work. It's our joy. it's just so simple. But the thing we have to look at, in all honesty, is we're getting older, and although we're physically and mentally sound at the moment, we might not be forever. And once again, I trust that somebody will come to us. I have my granddaughter watching this, so Carmen, change of plan here, girlie. But none of our families will probably take over from us. So we're ever hopeful that somebody will come, be inspired, and think exactly the same way that we do, because there are so many things here that I guess they don't do on all sanctuaries. So yes, it's the two of us. It's always been the two of us. We had a few exceptions years ago when people would ask to come and help. But if it rained, they didn't come. And the awful thing is that when somebody comes for 4 or 5 times, the animal that they're serving gets attached to them. And I cannot watch somebody looking for a human to come when it's pouring with rain, full knowing they're not going to turn up. The animals have suffered enough by the time they get here. They've come from slaughterhouses. They've come from farms where they're going to call the hunt out. They have gone to hell and back. And our feeling is that when they come through that gate, life is gentle, life is kind. There's no stress, there's no suffering, there's no pain. So that's emotional pain as well as physical. So just the two of us.
Great, lovely. You mentioned a film about the pigs. Do you mind just sharing the name of the film?
It's called Gunda. That's Gunda.
Mm-hmm. Great.
And it's the director is Victor Kossakovsky. That's Victorkossakowsky. Kossakovsky. It'll be coming to the London Film Festival soon.
Okay, I will, when I can maybe send a message out to our members with the name of the film.
It really is worth seeing. There's no slaughter. It's just a very gentle ride, apart from probably 2 minutes, which is nature. It's not humans doing anything horrible. But you'll see the Hugletts Wood Boys with all the stills, with all the close-ups, with many parts. I think it's 11.4 minutes of Hugletts Wood Boys.
Great.
Said she with pride.
We have many people saying, do you mind sharing how we can help? Like what are ways in which people can help Hugletts?
I think supporting our endeavors would be very nice. We try not to constantly plead for donations. I find that very offensive when somebody sets up a sanctuary and it's completely donation based. I mean, what the heck? It's like you saying, I'd like to be a rocket scientist, but somebody can pay for everything so I can do it. It's, to us, it's our responsibility. But we try to do lots of things so that people, in return for their Lakshmi, we can give them something like an open day here. We have, what's it called, an online auction with some of the most amazing donations of goods coming up on Facebook. It's to raise funds for a little handicapped bullock we have called Nipper Jackson, who has glow-in-the-dark and psychedelic leg braces to enable him to walk. And he's just grown out of some. So we were supposed to have them replaced this year by the guy who comes from America to make the braces. But he can't travel and we can't go there. So we're having to do it for next year. But we have open days, we have events. We're having a Bollywood night next year in the Cherry Orchard, which will be interesting. We're having a Mad Hatter's Tea Party in June. We've got 4 open days in 2021. Or, often, especially from the Hindu community, and some elderly Jain people, a request that we do it. We feed the cows in memory of somebody who's left their body in their family, like their grandma or their auntie or whatever. And we quite happily film that for some people if they want to see it or they want to send it round to family. Really, it's just however people want to help. If they want to make donations, that is wonderful. If they want to attend one of the events, that is even more wonderful, because then they get to see firsthand some of these amazing souls here. Or supporting the initiatives we have on Facebook. It's there's quite a lot.
Great. So all the details can be found on your Facebook page.
Yep.
The main access. Great. Okay,
Yes.
I will share that with everyone as well. Please keep the questions coming. We still have around like 20 more minutes. While we wait for more questions, I have a few questions. What's your view on medicine that's been tested on animals, and also what medicine do you give to your own animals? Like, has it been treated on animals or not?
It's a tricky one. I personally would never take medicine that's been animal tested. I would rather die. For the animals, my feeling is, and let me explain, we use a lot of alternative things. We use homeopathy. We use, what else is it? We use minerals. We use, let me just think, acupuncture. We use everything alternative that we can get. And when we have to use allopathic medicine, I will always say to the vet, how tested is that? And he's better now. After 20 years, he's much better, but he used to look at me as if I was a complete idiot. Just say, it's for the animals, or it was just on this and it was just on that. We try as much as we can. We have to balance whatever is needed to give the best possible care, especially when somebody's coming to the end of their physical life. And they need specific medicine. I can't hand on heart say we have never given animal tested medicine to the cows, because the logical side of me says if it was tested on animals, it's benefiting animals. But we try in the main never to use anything that's come from suffering. The energy is not good. And I don't mean to sound as if my feet are 10 feet off the ground, but we're all energy. And if something is good and you give it, if it's good energy, then it's positive. But if something comes from suffering and fear and horror, then how can it be any good? It might be efficacious, but really, karmically, how can it be good? It doesn't make any sense to me. But each to their own, I guess. You know, some people will say, well, you should take medicine, Wenda, if you ever need it, because it will save your life, and in saving your life, you'll be able to serve more animals. My life is neither here nor there. It's of no significance. None. So why should I feel that I'm superior enough to take medicine? Likewise, why should I not question what we are giving to those in our care? So we will go first of all for anything that's alternative, anything that doesn't involve the taking of animal tested medicine for the animals in our care. And then if we really are stuffed with that, we will have to ask the vet, how tested is that? How recently tested? I know a lot of vegans go on a 30-year cutoff for medicines for themselves. I don't know if there are many medicines, veterinary medicines, that were available 30 years ago, because it's only recently that vets have been able to make money by using the medicines that have been recently tested.
Great, thank you for your answer. We've got another question. How did you first get into Krishna consciousness, and how does this influence your daily life?
I'm very bad devotee. I think I'm the worst devotee in ISKCON. My first contact with Krishna consciousness was watching the devotees do Harinam in New Oxford Street. And I just had the mantra in my head. and I kept repeating it and repeating it. I drove my parents insane. Then it sort of disappeared. But if I was ever in a situation where I needed support or people would call on God, I would recite that mantra, and I was probably 12 years old. I think I'm more, in fact, devotees have said to me, you're more Jain than Krishna conscious. I would agree with that. I love Krishna. I absolutely love Krishna. He is the eternal cowherd boy. I'm not so fond of him in his situations on the battlefield or with Arjuna. His young life I love, and that inspires me. And when other devotees say to me, oh, you weren't in the temple? Where did you do your rounds? I will say, in the cowshed with Krishna. To me, Krishna is with the cows. So I tend to go about my daily business. I believe Krishna put me in this situation, that I'm blessed by serving cows. Not that I'm important or anything like that. I just think that I'm blessed by him to be able to serve. But when it comes to a devotional life, I'm not particularly good. If anything to do with the cows needs doing, I do it before offering. I will offer food. I'll make food and boga and then offer it so it's prasadam. Matt's not a devotee, so if he cooks, we eat boga. But I can just offer it before I eat. That to me is enough. But ask anyone who knows me, and if you said to them, what sort of devotee is Bhumi Priya, they would say, ha, she's not a devotee at all. She's just a cowherd. So I'm not a good devotee.
Thank you. What's the biggest dilemma that you've had to face in your life caring for the animals?
Not having any Lakshmi, not having any money, and working out where we can get it from, and whether we can earn more, or whether we're going to have to ask people to make donations. It didn't come to that, fortunately. That so far, I would think, is the biggest dilemma. Probably another one was when we were asked to take the 22 cows and calves recently, and knowing that having spent 5 months protesting against live exports, that I would be doing just that. The best way of getting them to us was always going to be across water. And we said to each other many times, should we do it? Is it right? Will they be sick? Will they be uncomfortable? Will it harm them? But dilemmas in the past have always been money. Always.
Right. Yeah, please keep your questions coming. Another question is, does your view on euthanasia extend to humans as well? Do you feel that euthanasia, if someone themselves decides, is that still hinsa?
That, I think one has to look at the situation. If a human is in a position where they can speak freely for themselves, then I think it's personal choice. To me, I believe, we're getting into the realms of craziness here, I suppose, for many people, but I believe that we're here in our bodies now for a reason. And we have a lot to learn. We have lessons to learn. And we have to complete this incarnation for however long it's ordained to be. It's not our choice. I would hate to say this and suddenly find myself in my old age suffering from something that's so awful. And I would hope, if I do, I would understand what I'm saying now. I think it's very much one of those things that if somebody is able to speak for themselves and it's their desire, that they go to, is it Belgium or Switzerland and whatever, and everybody in their family is comfortable with that. That is their choice. I would be afraid that they have to come back in another body and do the whole thing again. but that's me. I'm not them. But as far as animals are concerned, I think I've talked so many Jain cat owners through fighting their vets so that they can just bring their cats home to leave their bodies gently with their family, that I suppose I'm a bit pedantic about this, that if somebody knows they can serve an animal to the end and not leave them unattended and not get tired halfway through, but they know they can actually honor them and serve them as they would a human, then I think it's the best thing to do. It means that animal is not going to have to go through another incarnation in that body. It can progress.
Wonderful, thank you. We have many people asking for your bank account details.
Do I type them up here?
I think that'll be great for the people in the chat, and then I can also save it for to be posted.
Can I just say, with this account, some of you might have known the mess up. Actually, that was a dilemma. I forgot about that. When our bank suddenly shut our account, they discovered it had been a mistake, but we'd lost everything. And then they held on to our money, and they would only let it go to a bank account in the name of the sanctuary. And we were trying to get them to put it into a building society account in the name of the sanctuary, because that was our savings account. So we obviously left them, well, they left us. But we have another online account now, which sounds silly after that experience, but they don't charge us. And it can make quite a difference over a year, like £500 or £600. So my feeling was that we would go once again to an online bank account. And some people who have set up standing orders. The other thing I didn't mention, actually, very briefly, is if people feel inclined to sponsor one of the animals, we have a wonderful initiative called a special person scheme. It can be a special family as well. And it just means that people get a chance to come once a month and spend time with that animal and get to know them. We tend to make sure that the animal is going to be receptive to your interest in them, because we don't believe it's right to take Lakshmi if there's going to be no relationship building up. But anyway, with the online bank account, some people with their banks have been getting a kickback saying, don't recognize this account. As long as you put the numbers and the sort code in, it is ours. I think it's just something that the high street banks are doing to try and stop people leaving them and going to online accounts. We've not had a problem with any donations we've had to this account, but it just freaks people out when they're trying to make a transfer and it comes back with that. But if I'll just, while I'm talking, put the details up. And we can go on. If there's another question, I think I can just about split my brain in half.
Sure, I'll ask it while you type the details. There's a question. Does your reverence of life extend to vegetation? Kind of relate to what you eat and like hints when digging whilst farming?
Yes. We tend to do a lot by hand, so that we don't use machinery to dig the ground. At least not large machinery. We tend to use a tractor to deliver feed to the cows and things like that, but we very rarely mass dig a whole area of ground. Matthew in particular is absolutely completely careful about the woodland. He loves trees. He is so gentle with the way that he removes fallen trees. He won't remove them till a certain part of the year, I think it's summer or something like that, when nothing is actually needing the tree to live in. He is very, very much into the feeling, into the belief that trees will regenerate naturally if you leave them alone and just make conditions good for them. He doesn't even mind if a tree falls and it's left for 2 years. As long as nothing has taken up residence, he will actually leave anything that has things living in it until the tree is so dead they don't want to know it anymore. With vegetables, as I grow the vegetables, we tend not to eat a lot of leafy stuff when it's very, very hot, because creatures shelter under the leaves. And I can't bring myself to wash them off. They have to have that. We have a resident mouse in the polytunnel where I grow all the seedlings. So he, or whoever has come after him, he might not still be living after 20 years, but whoever takes over the little pipe that he lives in, we have an unspoken agreement that I will plant extra things for them, but they leave the main things alone. It's worked to date, apart from one rogue mouse, probably about 8 years ago, who ate all the seeds I'd planted in pots and moved the cover off to get to them, but then covered everything up. So I didn't know until nothing grew. But we tend to respect food. As I said, we leave things to die back. We're a little bit peculiar, or I am, with root vegetables. That's Jane. I'll eat them. I'm very nervous about digging them, so I will use my hands. That is literally to protect life around the potato. And I know there's a Jain teaching that potatoes can regrow themselves or split or whatever, and therefore we're taking more than one life. But we try to balance. We have to be sensible. We have to eat. But we do what we can and let everything die back naturally, so that we're not taking a whole life of a plant, just its fruits or its seeds.
Great, thank you. I think we've got a final question coming in. With your views, how do you socialize? Like, do you tend to meet people who understand your thinking, or has that been a challenge?
It's been so long since we had a social life. We tend to, a lot of our friends are Hindu. A lot of our friends are Jain, young people. We tend not to go to parties and stuff like that. I think we're too old for that. But I'm very antisocial. Very antisocial. I prefer to be doing something or working or making something. We get times where we're invited out and we have to go, and once we're there, we really enjoy it. We have an unspoken rule that we will not sit at a table where there's flesh or dairy, which sort of curtails socializing with family and friends who are not vegan. So we're limiting ourselves. But it works. I mean, being here is, although it's extremely hard work, and although emotionally it can be awful. We have a little calf at the moment who's suffering from something called rain scald. When they're left out in the rain with no protection, his mother died, and he wasn't noticed for a little while. And when they got him, he had all sorts of nasty things under his fur. That takes a lot of work, because we're treating him 3 or 4 times a day, which leaves us little time. And of course, if anything happens, we've made so many appointments over the years to see friends, and somebody has suddenly not looked well, and I won't leave, and Matt won't go on his own. So we make a cup of tea and stay here.
Lovely. I think that's it. There are like lots of comments saying thank you very much. So yeah, I'd like to just again say on behalf of Cambridge University Jain Society and everyone attending, thank you so much for this talk. It was really insightful and just really touching to see how you care for all these animals. Thank you. I think if anyone wants to unmute and say anything, please feel free to. Otherwise, we will end the event here.
Thank you very much.